Now my guests are in the studio. Some of them are here, and so we will start the show and wait for those who are yet to come in. And right here in the studio this morning to assist us do the discussion, Abdul Malik Wekuba, co-editor-in-chief of the New Crusading Guide newspaper. He's our regular panelist. Also here is Ernest Kofi Abochi. He's immediate past dean, Gimpa Law School, and practices at Axis Legal Solicitors. Also here is Samuel Okujeto Ablakwa, a former student leader, MP, North Tongue, and ranking member, Foreign Affairs Committee of Parliament. He also had the privilege of being in the Ministry of Education. So we're hoping for sufficient assistance in these discussions. We will be joined shortly by Yawabing Asamoah, who is MP Adentan, ranking member, Subsidiary Legislation Committee, and Communications Director of the NPP. Later, we will be joined by Ni George Anda, who is MP Ewutu Senior West and Deputy Communications Minister. Gentlemen, good morning and welcome to Newsfile.
Good morning.
Great. Good to have you. So, as we know, it's been rioting on the KNUST campus. It's been distraction on the KNUST campus. But, like the question is posed somewhere in the Bible, is there not a cause? But if there is a cause anyway, how do you justify whatever it is that happened? And we will focus on very interesting aspects of what has been happening at the KNUST. Is everybody else involved in attempts to resolve the crisis engaged in breaking the law to resolve the crisis? There's a latest that the government has done, and that is that it has added certain groups that felt they had been sidelined in the process. And let's see if that is enough to resolve the problem. So TEU and UTAC have been added to the interim committee. Is that still a way to resolve the issues? You're welcome once again to Newsfile. Let's listen and watch what it is that happened on the KNUST campus on the 26th of this month, right? Or the 25th of this month.
What's up?
It's like the voter hall at the University of Ghana. Okay, and someone having a good time sleeping on the blockade, right in the middle of the road. Some interesting, things are happening in demonstrations. Okay, so those are the visuals we are seeing now. The cars coming, how are they able to pass? And you see the students milking from one part. Okay, so the cars have had to be forced to turn. And yes, that's what happened. Okay, so now let's listen to some of the students and a couple of other persons who had to speak in the course of the week.
My mother didn't allow me to go, said I should wait and take the scan and even internal bleeding because they hate me with it. So, but for me, I don't know how it's the best thing. I'm feeling something inside, I don't know.
The entire student populace of KNUST
are having one voice. That the vice chancellor, the dean of students, the head of security, we don't need them again, and they should all go.
On orders of authorities.
Look at the situation very carefully. Some students have been brutalized. All these things done by security men who could be fathers of us. You understand? If you're a father and then you're acting as a security man, doing all these things, what do you think a child like you will one day do in the future? We're trying to kill us on campus. We are here for education. We cannot educate ourselves with the fear of our lives being threatened.
It has happened this way. Tomorrow, the National Union of Ghana students may not promise. And come tomorrow, we are doing a press conference, live press conference, from which we will go to His Excellency the President, Flagstaff House, and tell His Excellency the President and the Minister of Education that if measures are not taken to put the Vice Chancellor of the university to order, if measures are not taken to make sure that if this had happened in any serious civilized country, believe me, one the Dean of Students would have resigned. Yes, because he has failed. Number two, the head of security should have been resigned by now.
There has been a lot of restraint by our security men in the face of so much provocation. You find students doing all sorts of things. These few students, I mean, doing all sorts of things. Just imagine blocking the entrance of the hall, not allowing the residents to go in there.
In the process, they vandalized the reception of the main administration block, offices of the Dean of Students, Finance Office, University Relations Office, and the Security Services. They also vandalized about 30 vehicles belonging to staff of the university. Information available to KNUST indicates clearly that some alumni of the university hall have been the brain behind, orchestrated, and executed the acts of vandalism as they came in several buses to participate in these activities.
What this is indicating is that a new management council, an interim one, is being put in place that can dispassionately look at issues arising out of what we saw at KNUST and deal with it impartially. The president, the minister, everyone condemns in no uncertain terms the vandalism that took place at the institution. And after listening to all stakeholders, the minister, of course, supported, directed by the president, approves of the fact that there's a need for a new interim management committee that has a 3-month mandate and is also charged with reopening the school within 14 days.
Right, Dr. Educhum, if what government wants to do is to have a dispassionate look at what happened, why not simply set up a committee to do that? Why dissolve the council?
You see, when you want the school to open, you do everything to make sure the school opens. The academic integrity and the standing of the university among other universities in the world is so important that you don't have that opportunity of waiting. We have foreign students who are stranded at the university. If you set up a committee, then what happens? What does the committee do? Now we have a committee that is doing the work of investigating what happened, and at the same time have the authority to run the school, so that the standing of tech is not dented in the eyes of the academia in the world, and also for people to understand that the academic success of the institution is so dear to the hearts of many.
Okay, Dr. Educhum, what happens to the Vice Chancellor?
The Interim Management Council will give further directives as to what happens to the council, the Vice Chancellor.
Right, so the council will determine whether he keeps his job or whether he gets removed?
Yeah, that will come from the Interim Management Council.
What has happened in KNUST is unfortunate, and the decision by government to set aside the governing council to establish an interim management committee doesn't sit well with UTAG. Why am I saying this? We say that comments that certain individuals associated with government making all lead to the fact that the Vice Chancellor, there's a plan to remove him ultimately. Be it as it may, I thought that upon the visit of the Minister of Education, there was going to be a support of the current legitimate council to reflect over the issue, and that government will use its clout. Since government has appointed 4 members of that council, one of which is the chairman, that look, this is what has happened. Policy implementation has gone wrong. Could you reflect over this and decide whichever way without us necessarily interfering? No, government decides not to do that. So if that's what government wants to do, you don't sit down and select and choose the way you want it. It is not fair, and we see what is coming. We see the larger plan that has been hatched.
What larger plan is that?
What I'm telling you is that the plan is that this committee should work. It's like a small screen. At the end of the 3 months, they come out with findings, and the Vice Chancellor will find his way out of the university. UTAG is not going to sit down for this to happen. Look, if you take a university, there are 3 major stakeholders: students, faculty, administrators. You don't provide a platform for students purposely to provide information as a way of investigating their Vice Chancellor. In secondary schools in the country, in Ghana, in the history of our secondary schools, students go on demonstration, destroy secondary school property. They say they will not eat dining hall food and all of that. Ghana Education Service doesn't even ask the headmaster to step down. The headmaster, the school always has a legitimate management board, including the headmaster, to look at the issues.
Right, so we've heard from the students, we've heard from the registrar of the university, the PR of the university. We've heard from the Deputy Education Minister, Dr. Eric Opoku-Mensah, who is UTAC President, and Professor Kwabena Foucault is KNUST UTAC Local Chapter President, and all of them with varying views. But it does appear that they are all united in asking that the manner in which government has intervened is illegal and wrong. There are statements that have been issued by all the other stakeholders involved, particularly in the university, UTAC, GAU, TEU, alumni, all of them saying government has acted wrongly and illegally. It should restore the council that it purportedly has dissolved and allow for the law to be used to resolve the matters. Yabwamia someone joins us now. Thank you very much for joining us, sir.
My pleasure.
And thankfully, we have former student leaders. Yabwamia someone was also president of the hall that I was also privileged to be president of, Ekwafu Hall of the University of Ghana. So let's begin by getting your perspective as former student leaders who have had the opportunity to get into government, and you are in parliament and you are in leadership, and particularly starting with you, Okujato Ablakwa, you also have had the opportunity of being at the Education Ministry. What would be your assessment of what has happened on KNUST campus without beginning to rush the questions of legality that's been raised?
Well, thank you very much, Samson, and good morning to you and the panel, and my regards to our distinguished viewers and listeners. These are certainly extraordinary times, and they are times that require a lot of circumspection and a lot of caution. Tensions have flared up. You have virtually the entire higher education community taking keen interest in this matter, issuing statements. They have taken sides, both the authorities and student leaders alike. It is important that a lot of caution is exercised in discussing this matter so as not to inflame passions further. As we speak, the university has been closed down, and there is no indication when the university will be reopened. So lives are at stake, the future of the young people of this country, tens of thousands of them, are at stake.
The order from government is that the university should be reopened within 14 days, starting 2 days ago, correct?
It does not appear that that order will materialize, because universities declaring a university open in 14 days without lecturers, without administrators, without table members, the workers, the students will just return, and you would as well have preferred that the students do not return. The last time we saw, I mean, these are very historic moments. The last time something like this happened, I've been checking the records, was in 1977, about 41 years ago, when the regime at the time decided to retire some civil servants, including the Chief Justice of Ghana, will you believe it, the governor of the Bank of Ghana, and 2 medical professors who the regime did not like, professors as SRA Dodu and EA Bedu of the University of Ghana Medical School. Certainly, protests erupted.
Is this your own book you wrote about these things that you're referring to?
No, this is a history of the University of Ghana.
History of the University of Ghana.
Half a century of higher education, 1948 to 1998, by Francis Agbodeka.
Right. It came up recently.
Yes.
For reference.
Yes, and he documents the developments. Interestingly, 3 cars were burnt. Students were asked to go home, and eventually the university was closed down. It was argued in 1977 that government cannot interfere with the autonomy of our institutions. Government cannot interfere with academic freedom. Government must allow the structures, the legal regime, to operate. 41 years ago. What lessons have we learned? Why are we back here? And why are we choosing options that would further worsen matters?
Backtrack a bit and do what I expected you to do. Go back to your school days and when you were a student leader, and put yourself in the shoes of the students.
Yes, I'm going to do that. Do you
appreciate their issues? What exactly are they? Help us appreciate from your perspective, and tell us whether or not, you know, their action was justified, except the eruption of violence.
So I would give you that, and then I'll give you my perspective also as a former Deputy Minister of Education in charge of tertiary education. As a former student leader, and indeed as a Ghanaian, I must say that if you're a Democrat, you believe in the 1992 Constitution, specifically Chapter 5, talks about rights, Article 21, which is very, very clear. I am very certain in my mind that the students have a case. The students are complaining about a consistent violation of their rights. As we speak, students cannot assemble. Processions have been banned, have been outlawed in the halls of residence. It is also important to emphasize that JCR executive of University Hall, of Unity Hall, have been removed from office, not by those who elected them, the students, but by the university authorities, because, all because they went to court protesting the mixed hall policy, the conversion.
From the SRC that they have met and this has been reversed.
Yes, but we're going before the reversal, you know, and you ask yourself, what was going on? Article 21 of our Constitution, Article 21 wants it, all persons shall have the right to be freedom of thought, conscience, and belief.
All right, so
which shall include academic freedom.
Speaks, what you're watching, CCTV footage from the KNUST, showing you a couple of the things that transpired. We'll play that back because it looks like some of you may have missed it. Yes, go ahead.
And Article 21D also states that freedom of assembly, including freedom to take part in processions and demonstrations. So these directives banning assembly, banning morale, banning the gatherings that take place.
What is
after
morale?
Morale is when we meet and we charge, we sing songs, drum and dance. And as a vandal, it was, you know, a relieving moment. You know, after a long week of academic stress,
you make noise, you disturb other people's
you just
peace.
distress and unwind. I mean, it happens in every university in the world. I mean, these are traditions which do not hurt anybody. In Commonwealth Hall, it's done at the observatory. It doesn't disturb anybody in Volta Hall or Legon Hall or Ekwafu Hall, and it's generally peaceful. I mean, we drum and dance in church. Why can't we drum and dance in our halls of residence? I mean, in our traditional settings, during festivals, we drum and dance. So I see it within that context. And then, something, all of these regulations, which are generally really illegal because they undermine the rights of the students, came about because someone thought that he had to adopt an iron fist style of governing the institution because of a policy which was unpopular. And that policy is the conversion of the single-sex halls to mixed halls. Again, another policy which...
Conversion of the only male halls into...
Later on, that's how we started. Later on, it became all single-sex halls, which affected Africa Hall as well.
Right.
Now, we were told from university communication, official university communication, a copy of which I have here, that the policy is informed by the need to expand access for female students, and that the university wants to create more spaces. So if you mix up Katanga and Conti, as they are popularly called, then you create more space. However, along the line, Africa Hall is then also converted to a mixed hall. People ask logical questions, that if you say you want to create more space, how come Africa Hall is also affected? You then reduce space. Meanwhile, you are not providing the official statistics. Enrollment does not begin with residency. Enrollment starts with the point of admission.
But sincerely, mixing them does not create more space, does it?
It doesn't.
Right.
It doesn't create more space. So legitimate, logical questions came up. It became clear to the alumni when you listen to them that there are other intentions, there are other motives, which perhaps people are not bold to say. And now I think that, you see, one of the solutions we need in these times of uncertainty is to be sincere and to be frank, to be forthright. It is clear to me, after listening to all sides, listening to the alumni, and observing the statistics, because it's not as if the statistics at KNUST ratio, the admission ratio is now 50-50. It's still 60-40.
So it is clear to you that what was the motive?
It is clear to me that the belief is that Katanga unity, you know, these male traditions of, you know, dominance and perceived superiority and what have you. Rivalry, and some will say that they disturb the peace on campus. So let's break that tradition. That really is the motive.
To mix them with ladies.
To mix them with ladies. Okay. And you know, in our history, that has been tried before. It was tried in 1957 in Commonwealth Hall. After 2 years, the experiment was abandoned. So by 1959, all the ladies were moved to Volta Hall. It did not work. Once again, we didn't learn from our lessons. We didn't learn lessons from history. So this whole policy is not a policy that is worth defending. It cannot be sustained. And I would have thought that when the agitations began, university authorities will have at least listened to the concerns. The Ministry of Education was petitioned by the alumni. They even staged a demonstration in February this year. I have the press cutting here. What happened? The president was petitioned by the alumni. A month ago, he assured that there will be some review. What happened to that review? So you have a situation where those seized with the authority to act were not proactive. Were not proactive. and we are where we are. When you listen to the student leaders and you listen to the alumni leaders as well, there is a sense that they did not have audience. Their views were not taken on board. And you see, in an intellectual community...
They went to court and lost. That should have ended it. Is that not the case?
They lost only the injunction,
right,
but the substantive case is still pending, from what I hear. So you should always create room to listen to your stakeholders. When I was deputy minister, there are 3 things I did, and I think that those 3 interventions really helped to, ease tensions, improve cordiality, and all of that. First, every Wednesday, 2 to 4 p.m. was open to student leaders from all the higher institutions of learning. You don't need an appointment. You can just walk in. Insofar as I'm in town, you have access. You get to see me. The second intervention was at the beginning of every academic year, we had the Student Leaders Summit. And my boss will come and open it, and we will listen to the students and hear from them what the issues are and how they believe the academic year will pan out and what are the matters they want us to take up. 3, we had the Campus Connect program that took the policy makers to the campuses to interact with students. Because as a student leader, I recall how difficult it was to get an appointment, to see a vice chancellor, to see a minister of education. It is only when you are on demonstration, protesting, and you have your petition in hand.
Council meetings are held, and you are represented. You are on the board, on the council. So you meet there. When you are voted, then you come out and make noise.
They'll give you audience. You see, beyond, council meetings are far and in between, and really it's so formal, it's so rigid. You follow an agenda, and things come up every now and then.
Okay.
So we need to have a culture that is more democratic,
so
more
pause
transparent,
at this point,
and
we'll
that
come
listens
to
to
interrogate further the questions that you raise about the approach to the resolution. Yes. So you too, with the benefits of where you have come from as a student leader, what do you say about what has happened on KNUST?
Thank you, Samson. Let me greet Ghana and my constituency in particular. This morning I was supposed to be in church, and then I'm here because of the gravity of this matter. And let me blow my own horn, since you haven't congratulated me, and Kwaku hasn't congratulated me, the regular panelists. So I should blow my own horn.
Okay.
I'm not the director of communications for the party.
That's how I introduced you.
It's an honorous.
Okay.
So now I can't do propaganda like him. I have to be circumspect and careful. Not on this particular program. I mean, generally, his posture and going forward, I have to be very, very.
I thought once you are made communications director, you have now been giving the license.
Propaganda chief. Yes, but then this is a very serious matter. I think that the basic premise is that we need to maintain the integrity and brand of the university and ensure normalcy as quickly as possible so that academic work can go on in security for everybody.
Right, don't jump to that. Let's assess the development,
having
the
said
events.
That, it's a very fluid, for me, it's a very fluid situation that we are in. I don't believe at this point in time there is one solution that solves the entire gamut of situations. Now I'll go ahead to explain. But before then, let's go back to student leadership days. And you were reading something from 51 or 47. But I remember vividly, 94, 95. I don't want to mention names, but I remember that one. When the government shut down the University of Ghana for a year.
Right.
Yeah, NUGS, SRC, we went on demonstration. I was beaten and I wept like a baby dog, puppy. Meow, meow, meow. Because, you remember Jack Bebley? This was Jack Bebley in all his glory, authorized by the state to move in and institute some order. He didn't care about the university council or the vice chancellor. I didn't want to mention names to, to hurt families. But there were gunshots. But Ofori was shot. There were gunshots on Legon campus. I ran. I was a leader. I ran. But I ended up in the police station and I was whipped and I was beaten. as a leader of that demonstration, we
20 of
went
the students or so are in police custody,
yes.
And then we are told that about 40 cars or more than that,
yes, the major assessments,
you know,
and all
were
that.
damaged.
I am not in a position to, at this point in time, comment on the value issues about the demonstration, the damage, and all that. But the principle of demonstrating has been with us for several years. Indeed, when it started, in the era of the Obeda Samuels, and what we hear was that they were demonstrating over the quality of the chicken they had. And whether it was, in one of the apocryphal stories we've heard, they said they had chicken for too long.
Yeah, and they wanted some
and
fish.
they wanted something else, so they demonstrated.
Wanted a balance there.
Then you come down, going forward, there was a time when we used to demonstrate about national issues. The student front was very vibrant in the early union government days and all that, and they suffered their share of beatings in that era for their positions. Then you come forward more recently, then there were demonstrations about cost sharing and all that. So now the issues were descending from national to internal matters, cost sharing, pairing up in rooms and all that. And then fast forward to where now we are looking at change management of traditions. It's a very complex situation. I think that once we accept that this is not an exceptional demonstration situation, then the extreme language can go down. If we begin to describe it as unprecedented, we've never seen this before, etc., etc., it inflames passions. So let's establish that there will be demonstrations. There have been demonstrations over the years, and going forward, there may yet be demonstrations. In that case, let's now contextualize this particular demonstration and begin to situate it where we can solve it. Because it has happened, the damage is massive, and the consequential issues are, to my mind, a situation where you have multiple stakeholders. Whenever you have multiple stakeholders, then you have multiple issues. You have stakeholders, including not only the three on campus, not only the lecturers, not only the administration, not only the students, but you also have TEU, you have FUSAG, you have UTAG, you have parents, you have alumni, you have all manner of people. You have even tradesmen and business people who deal with the university. You have the international community, because now universities have international, very vibrant international parts. So everybody will have their own issues. And now, at some point, I hear people say it's about the insecurity, about the high-handedness of the VC. It's about trying to do a mixed hall policy. It's about the changing the morale and all that. So the issues are many and complex. When that happens, Samson, you also have multiple decision-making points. You have multiple decision-making points. In other words, every group, every stakeholder involved in this at a point has a certain feeling that we can say this and this is where we stand and this is what we do. The challenge there is how you merge, filter, and get to the point where you are able to establish the ultimate decision. And that ultimate decision, that authority to make the ultimate decision, we have to determine whether it lies with the Vice Chancellor or it lies with the government, because there are issues about legality and otherwise. So there must be authority at some point to make a definitive pronouncement on something. Now, without going into the merits, well, I'm sure we will, if you have a council that appears to have a running battle with students, and that council is in court and has implemented a policy that they are in disagreement with, appears to be high-handed, even though it's vested with the law, does it have the moral authority to continue implementing the law the way it ought to be? Then you have the students with all the opportunities they have to engage. They are on the council and otherwise. Is it the case that now we have to listen solely to them and say that your issues, your duties are the ones that ought to override everything? So essentially what I'm driving at now is the participatory nature of what we have. Our constitution, if I may borrow my honorable colleague Okudzetu's constitution, is crafted on participatory principles. is seriously participatory. So when you have a government which is managing a participatory constitution, your duty is to be as listening as possible. So I'm not surprised that this morning government has included UTAG and TEU in the interim management committee, even though it is doubtful whether at this point in time we are on firm legal footing. So let me land. The important point I'm making is that extreme contestation at this point may not be in any stakeholder group's interest. No single group, UTAG, parents, because we are mixed. You could be a lecturer whose child is part of the demonstration because they are on campus. There is a different stakeholder in one family. You understand what I'm saying? You could be an alumni, and you would be on one side, and your child or somebody else within the university could be on the other side. So this is not the time for extreme positions and ultimata. Either you go this way or we disagree. We should pick up and look at the government's attitude. The government is open. The government is accepting of suggestions. We need a framework that is acceptable to as many, if not all, the stakeholders as possible in order to...
So you take a breather, and you've raised issues that we definitely will have to deal with, and deal with them in the specifics rather than in general terms. Let's hear Kuku's take on the developments on the KNUST campus.
Well, I see an octopus out there. Which one where do you want me to start from? You know, so many tentacles. I was thinking, and I'm not sure, maybe I'm following your guidance, where we have reached is where we should begin from. That's my feeling. Maybe it was good you asked former student leaders and activists to give us a certain historical, recollection of how they went through some of these processes and how they feel about it today. But here we are in a situation where an interim council, governing council, has been formed. If I'm wrong, if I'm going in the wrong direction, you can guide me. Right. Has been formed, and there are questions being raised about its legality or otherwise. But that's where we are, and no problem has been resolved yet, in my candid opinion. I've heard about these concessions that the student leadership see they have been given. I don't know if it's factual.
We are trying to confirm that because
it's factual. I have checked. What?
You have checked with the student leadership?
Yes, I called them on my way here.
All right.
What has happened? The concessions.
There's a statement.
They issued a statement. Yeah.
There's a suggestion that certain concessions have been made. Yes.
Yeah.
So you proceed.
By the leadership of the university. Just before the interim management council was announced.
But you see, the significance of that is this: they procured those concessions through dialogue, through engagement with the university authorities. At what point in time, and within which context, the spirit, within which spiritual spirit did they get that? So there was always room for dialogue. That indeed dialogue had not broken down that much. That's what I find intriguing. That with all this noise in the wake of the closure, did they achieve those things before the closure? Obviously not. It means after the closure. So what mechanism was applied in getting the concessions done? Where did they meet? Who met who? And how did they arrive by those concessions? Meaning that there was channel for communication, for engagement, in order to tackle the problems that they were confronted with. All of them, I mean. I'm still a bit skeptical as to what we are being told, that they have achieved some concessions. I would want to be told when and how it was done. Otherwise, we shouldn't have gotten to the stage of dissolution of the governing council and a formation of an interim one. With all the noise about it now, I can hear UTAC, I can hear the other component body stakeholders, everybody saying that the formation of the interim council is wrong and is illegal, and that they want the old one restored before they can even join any processes towards resolution of the challenges. Yes, and that's why I'm wondering, if the students are such a key element in all this matter, they were those who went on rampage in view of certain consequent matters that had come in. Let's forget about the initial policy of conversion, because that was not the immediate trigger of the demonstration that turned into a violent one.
Right, that's what they say.
That's
there's a general creeping repressive culture.
And they itemize issues, the security details, brutalities of students, and all those. They itemize. It
doesn't appear it is limited to KNUST only, because you've heard UCC and other places, whilst they are doing their matriculation, then you hear the VCs say that if a student does this, you'll be sacked. If you do this, you'll be sacked. It looks like it's a new thing.
Yeah, so in terms of the demonstration on that day, it appears it wasn't the conversion policy that was its immediate trigger. That's the point I'm making.
Right.
And that policy, that dispute still is in court, isn't it?
It is.
They went to court. I think the alumni went to court also. Am I right? Yes. That's a recognition of the fact that there is a certain mechanism available for people to deal with issues. The injunction was dismissed, but the substantive case remains. I'm assuming that they are committed to pursuing that substantive case. That's what I'm assuming. If indeed they are committed to pursuing that substantive case within court, then it's a recognition that the methods you apply all along must be lawful. That's my view. You don't go to court to try and get something done, and in the process, in view of other matters, you decide to adopt methods that are not lawful. I have a difficulty with that. I'm not talking about demonstration per se. Demonstration per se is not unlawful.
At this particular
but the consequences, the adoption of some methods in the course of the demonstration were clearly unlawful. And I didn't know there was CCTV evidence. I'm so happy that there's CCTV evidence so that we can scale down and not generalize sanctions. We can scale down and be specific with individual liabilities when it comes to investigations and application of sanctions related to such things. But my point is this: we should be looking at where we are. Do we go forward with an interim government council? Is it practicable? Or do we go back to restore the status? Is it status quo ante, as you lawyers will say? Is that practicable? Really, let's ask ourselves these questions. The council that has been dissolved, they were there all along, weren't they? They had a mandate to deal with the issues. Were they successful in dealing with the issues? Are they now part of the problem? Can they be part of the solution? Can they be those to sit down and manage a process to resolve the challenge? Can they? Do they have the moral authority? Do they have the capacity to do so?
But you say they don't?
I think they are part of the problem now. So even if the law does not allow them to be dissolved unilaterally by any authority, I am thinking that they cannot be the vehicle to prescribe a unilateral resolution to the challenge. It's obviously impracticable.
The students were part of the council through the SRC.
And they
were also part of the problem.
The students are part of the problem.
In the new council, in the interim council, they are part of it.
I'm coming there. That's the point. You are getting my drift. I'm saying that it is obvious to me that something ought to be put in place to tackle the challenge. Immediate challenge. First of all, I'm talking of de-escalation. Okay, that's the first, and my de-escalation. That's the first theory, the first emphasis. But in so doing, already we have challenges. I've heard UTAG say if you don't restore the governing council, we are not going to be part of any process. They've even embarked on strike.
The senior staff, all of them singing the same tune.
I see a domino theory matter out there, ripple effect. But we can't let the thing expand. You can't. You got to find a way of arresting this situation and tackling it. If the scenario, the old governing council is restored, okay, let them go to work and resolve the matters. The same students are with them there. They were in tango that led us to this. I'm not sure whether we can build a certain confidence, a level of confidence and trust using the old mechanism. I'm not sure. I'm not talking law here. I'm not talking strict law. I'm talking here conflict resolution management proceedings and procedures. I'm not talking strict law. I hear lawyers and good ones saying that the formation of the interim council is illegal relative to the actors. I hear them. I'm prepared to even go along with them. But I'm saying that's so fine. Restore that council. Tell the council to undertake its mandate relative to the challenge we are confronted with. I don't see much of a critical mass of confidence and capacity in them dealing with it. Unfortunately, and I have to be very honest, the government's own conduct, by even belated inclusion of, is it UTAC thing, itself is indicative that government didn't take its time also in dealing with the issue. Yeah. Not enough consultation or engagement were pursued. So that you form this council, maybe out of good intentions, okay, common sense and political expediency may have informed it that, look, we are confronted with a challenge. The old instrument obviously has proved incapable. So let's put something in place and quickly resolve this matter and reopen the university. Maybe good intention. But the fact that it has to take protest before you realize you must bring in other representatives, itself shows that you didn't take your time in doing the work well. Let's be honest and clear about that. So we are confronted with something. What mechanism should we put in place going forward? Difference. We don't want interim council. We want the old one restored. Fine, look, you can restore the old one. I can tell you the old one would not be capable of resolving the problem. The old one maybe then may have to agree with others to set up a certain committee independent of the governing council.
Is it your suggestion that if the process in dissolving the old, well, those who are against it will not like me to even say the old, because all of them are unanimous that they don't recognize the dissolution, and anytime they even refer to dissolution, you find that they put it in inverted commas to tell you that what has happened is a purported action that they don't recognize. So when I say old, don't fight me. You feel that even though the process in that dissolution is wrong, is illegal, as you know, canvassed by lawyers you respect.
Yes, I'm inclined to believe in what the lawyers are saying. I'm not educated when it comes to those, but I'm inclined to believe so. But in any case, eventually, perhaps the court may have to determine even some of those aspects of the matter. But we can't be waiting for a court. We are confronted with an immediacy, an emergency. The whole university is being closed down. Okay, we want to restore the university back to normalcy. That is where you must be looking at. And I'm saying that if you're asking us to restore the old governing council, I would say old, I cannot, in my mind's eye, see them resolving the challenge. I can't see it. They could have solved it earlier. It is obvious they can't. Okay. It is obvious that there is mistrust and distrust. And the new one now too is bogged down in legalities, some of which make sense. Right. So then you can restore, and this is, you see, this is just thinking aloud. Assuming without admitting, you restore the old one. The new one is dead then and buried. But we want to solve the challenge that still persists. An independent mechanism of a sort, and I'm thinking aloud, then ought to be put in place to look at the challenges. Because look, the students complain of security brutalities. Is it the old governing council that is going to look into that and come to which conclusions? The security architecture itself there apparently is problematic, and they appear to have been empowered by the university authorities to undertake the things they were doing, sometimes with impunity. The students go out there, destroy properties, both private and public. okay, in a very violent way, which is actually against the laws of the land. They could be criminally prosecuted. But sometimes we favor students in this context, so do internal disciplinary measures, let them pay for the cost. It's a discriminatory policy. Somebody will tell you that it violates the Constitution. The campus is part of the territorial jurisdiction of this country. The laws apply there.
Okay, so...
so to be honest with you, if you asked me, I would say, look, an independent creature of a sort, and I have not given it the full thought, should be put in place, independent of the governing council of the university, independent of this interim council, to investigate and interrogate the issues and come out with a solution.
You are saying the status quo of the illegal dissolution should remain?
Well, you confuse me. Can you clarify?
The illegal dissolution should remain, and then some new other entity has to do this job.
See,
would that be legal?
I would think that government rushed, even doing well-intended. I can see where they came from in doing the dissolution. I think so. I'm convinced there's a certain potential illegality that has accompanied.
Okay, I'll get Abochi to speak to that. But
thankfully,
the release that just came out, the fresh one from the National Council for Tertiary Education.
Where were they?
Says that addition of representatives of the Teachers and Education Workers Union (TEU) and the University Teachers Association of Ghana (UTAG) to the Interim Council for KNUST. That the 7-member Interim Council for the KNUST, inaugurated on Thursday, October 25, 2018, included persons from convocation and management of the university. It was assumed, therefore, that this representation would provide a good reflection of the perspectives of both management and staff on the council. However, following further consultations, in the light of concerns raised by various groups about the membership, government, through the Ministry of Education, has revised the membership. Accordingly, I have been directed to inform you that approval has been given for the local TEU and UTAG to nominate one representative each to serve on the interim council. The Honourable Minister kindly requests that you take steps through the registrar to receive the nominees and to swear them in at your earliest opportunity. And this is signed by Professor Mohammed Salifu, Executive Secretary.
What has been their role since this whole crisis began, from the day one? What has been their role? Perhaps they could have intervened and floated this independent mechanism I'm talking about. Perhaps they would have been better placed, devoid of partisan political calculations.
Right, so let me bring Abochi in at this point. So can we begin to try to address the questions of legality? I see that you have noted a number of things. If you can do a summary of those other parts, and then we proceed to the questions of legality. The KNUST Act, I have opened it here, and I can see very clearly in Section 6, it says that the Vice-Chancellor shall be appointed by the University Council and is under the Council, the academic and administrative head and Chief Disciplinary Officer of the university. Has the President got a say, or the government, as you know, it's announced in the dissolution, got a say in the manner they have done what they have done?
Well, one or two things I noted which you mentioned. I normally don't start by speaking to folk wisdom, but this one I want to. There's an old saying that the road to hell is paved with good intentions. So there are so many ways we can act wrongly, even though we're well intended. I think that I really sympathize with government. First of all, we should remember that the campus is part of the security space of Ghana. Now, in that respect, the president is mandated to ensure that there is security and there's peace and stability. So the campus is part of Ghana. The president has a mandate over campus. That's why the RegSec represents the president in that respect. Now, having said that, the president must therefore demonstrate leadership. The president cannot sit back while he watches a part of Ghana burn gradually. So can the president or other president to have done something when we had the experience we had? My preliminary answer to that is yes. That is where I come back to the question of the road to hell being paid with good intentions. The president is obviously well motivated, and he had the obligation to do what he had to do, and he actually did act. The question is whether or not the action is legal. And that is where we have to be honest about the legal difficulty that the president encountered. The universities, and I go as far as to say things that are more problematic, i.e. when it comes to the management of universities and even the Ministry of Education. I have said many years ago that the universities are not even part or under the Ministry of Education. The Council for Tertiary Education is supposed to be the external oversight regulatory body as far as the universities are concerned. But the universities are internally structured to be autonomous. And that's why right from the Vice-Chancellor through the various hierarchy, the university has the various structures and systems that are designed for an independent entity to function. And there's a reason why structurally the universities are not supposed to be part of the Ministry of Education. Because the ministry reports to the president. And universities are supposed to be free in terms of academic freedom. So because of that, the universities are part of the bodies you call statutory bodies. So they are structured and set up by statutes. And then there's a regulatory entity, which is the Council for Tertiary Education. So over the years, we've had the Ministry of Education trying to occasionally, say one or two things about the universities. Sometimes if it's not broken, don't fix it. So we don't complain too much about them. But I would wish that we come to the realization, respectfully, that the universities are not being part of the ministries of education. But at this stage, that is not the issue at stake. And I think I commend at least what government has done, motivated by pragmatism. Of course, problematic in the face of law. And problematic in the face of law because you have the question about the legal aspects of this. I need to state, I'm not the law court. So what I say here is my opinion. It's not the determination. It doesn't determine the matter. It's not determinative. But there's a principle of statutory interpretation. And that principle is that he who has the power to create has the power to destroy. If you translate that into this context, it means he who has the power to constitute has the power to dissolve. So if you have no power to constitute, you don't have the power to dissolve. Now, the question then is, we look at the constitution of the council. And from my knowledge and reading of the law, government has a representation on the council. Government doesn't constitute the council. The council exists and is constituted by statutes. And government is represented. So government is a part of the body. Government being a part of the body, therefore, government doesn't have the power to dissolve it, because dissolving the body will include taking out those you did not even appoint. Yeah. And that is problematic. So from the standpoint of law and from the standpoint of statutory interpretation, there's already a problem in terms of the way it's been gone about in terms of the dissolution. And Kweku has said a lot, and my friends on the other side have said a lot as far as...
People have asked the question. Is it because it is KNUST that you're saying, you lawyers are saying what you're saying now? Because as far as they know, by Article 70 of the Constitution, the President appoints these Vice-Chancellors. And then by Article 297, the power to appoint includes the power to disappoint.
Correct.
And so why is it that he has done it in other universities, but when it comes to KNUST, we are crying wolf?
I will not want to make an argument in abeyance. I think we have a particular situation.
I'm asking so you can help situate it properly.
Right.
Because as far as we know, the various acts are not the same. What the University of Ghana Act says is not the same as what KNUST Act says. I've read the KNUST Act, which doesn't give the president the power to appoint.
That's right.
The University of Ghana Act clearly gives the president the power to appoint.
Right. So again, I don't want us to generalize, but if you want to, these are principles. So for example, if this matter comes before a court and the court should apply the principles of interpretation, one of the principles of interpretation is that where there's an express statement of something, the non-statement of that in another way implies the deliberate intention to take it out. So if we apply that principle, for example,
expressio juris.
You rendered the Latin version. So if you take the Legon example, if the Legon statute mandates the president to appoint, but there's a different removal process, that removal process must be complied with. Okay. But in this case, you rightly said, it's a different context altogether. In this case, the president doesn't even appoint. And so the question, as I indicated, if you apply the principle of interpretation, the one who has the power to create has the power to destroy. Since the president doesn't even have the power to appoint, it's even weaker when it comes to quote-unquote disappointment.
So what has happened is, plainly speaking, illegal.
According to our opinion.
Oh, that's not
because it's not important.
That's in the context of security.
Correct.
Really
No, but in the
context of security.
But it's important.
No, he didn't say that. He said the president has done an action that may be permitted, but did he do it right?
Legally speaking.
So in the context of security, what was he supposed to do?
Correct. Yes.
Was he supposed to dissolve a council he does not have power to dissolve?
Right.
So the president's actions, in my opinion, are justified from the standpoint of pragmatism. They are dictated by pragmatism. Look, if the campus has been thrown into a state of chaos and it had engulfed the Kumasi environs, for example, we probably may have ended up rectifying this and then now asking the questions about legality. So as one of my colleagues mentioned earlier, sometimes when you have security confronting you, you are motivated to act before you ask the sober questions of how justified or legal they are. In this context, maybe someone will say, I shouldn't go as far, because let's face it, you know, they were tending cars and all that. But the question is whether or not the council had been spoken to do what it has to do.
Are you saying the president has provided a solution for this situation?
No. I'm saying the president has acted in a way that has implicated legal issues. Now, let's come to the question of what Kwekubak was speaking about, the question of what should be done moving forward. I do not even think that what the president has done is totally useless. I think that we can actually get a cure from what the president has done, and that's a solution I will proffer. We have the council. If the president's dissolution of the council is illegal, if we accept it that it's illegal, then it represents a purported dissolution. And if it's a purported dissolution, then it means there was no dissolution. That's what it means. Okay. Because we can have statements that are ineffectual. So the president can make a statement intending it for a purpose, but if legally speaking that statement is set to be of no moment, then in reality, the thing that was intended to be quashed may still be there. So technically, the council should be there. Now, it's important for us, I have to be careful about these things, because nobody's calling for chaos. We have to let sober minds reflect and sober minds prevail. We have to all be sensible in these moments, because we all have stakes in KNUST as a country. So nobody's asking for challenges and confusions, but it's important for us to also lay the principles clearly. So if the president's pronouncement, for example, has not in reality ended up destroying the council, I think that the council, you are avoiding the word old, so I'm probably also avoiding old. You know, so avoid being attacked from all kinds of, but then it means that the council, together with the interim council that has been appointed, can actually play a collaborative role. In which case, the act will not be affected at all, because then the act is still there. The council is still there. Additions are not prohibited by the act. In fact, a surplusage and the constitution of all kinds of bodies to help the council to perform its work are not prohibited. If you read those acts, they actually say that the council may form other committees. So even technically, the council can adopt this committee. But even if the council doesn't adopt the committee, this committee can then play a mediatory role. I think that is the role the council, the committee should play.
I know you won't like it this way, but if you were providing legal advice to the UTAG, the Senior Staff Association, the TEU, all of these groups that have issued statements, and in the statement, the refrain you hear is that we do not recognize the so-called interim council arrangement. There must be immediate restoration of the university council. Some of them put the restoration in inverted commas. Yeah. So you'll be uncomfortable by my saying if you were advising them. But directly, what you have said is that they should treat the so-called dissolution as something that has not happened. And so the council can continue to do its work, because the instructions that came are illegal, they are unlawful. And by law, you don't obey unlawful instructions.
All right, but you're actually doing exactly what I asked not to be done. I.e., I'm a law teacher. So when I sit sometimes on these platforms, you have to be truthful and honest to the principles. There's a danger, however, sometimes, when we are speaking to the general public, someone's speaking to my students. There's a danger, however, sometimes that people can take things out of context, misinterpret them, and the effect can be chaotic. So that's why I said, I'm not saying that A has resulted in that, but I'm saying per principle, if, for example, we are saying that the new council is illegal, the new committee is illegal, then what it means is that the new committee did not actually have the effect of destroying the old one. But we are in a moment where clearly government is in the matter. And government cannot be, the big elephant cannot be, we cannot pretend. Government is not there.
Well, the elephant, as in the elephant or the big elephant.
Conclude that statement. We take a break, and then when we return, I have you answer the question. What suggestion from some lawyers is that they should go to court, and the court will simply demolish what the government has done, and the status quo will come back.
Okay.
Should they do that? So conclude your statement.
Okay, so in concluding my statement, it's important that I have some time on this, so I appreciate when you come back, or we can all have some time on this. It's important for us to get clarity on this, that there's no order for disobedience. Nobody should have chaos on the campus now between government groups, the so-called, again in quotes, old groups, students. That would be the worst chaos we can encounter. And nobody wants that. So that is clearly not what I have said. But I'm just saying that in order for us to treat this properly, I think functionally, the new committee can play a collaborative role with the council. Old or new, I'm not putting anything there, but with the council. The new committee can play a collaborative role. And I'm saying the collaborative role is this. They can play a mediatory role, because clearly the council has lost a certain degree of legitimacy in the eye of a major conflicting party, which is the student body. And because of that, the orders of the council at the moment are now being treated as a partisan order. It is no more a bipartisan order. So because the council has lost the bipartisan standing that is designed to play, the council itself needs to restore its own legitimacy by bringing in a third party who will mediate between the council and the student body. And when normalcy is restored, the council can then reassert its own leadership. But at this moment, there's a need for a third party, and that's where I see that the government's committee can play that responsibility.
I take a break right away, but what do you make of this suggestion? There's a suggestion from Ace. He says that who is it that is thinking that the VC is no longer a member of the council? Because when you hear all the statements that they have issued, they are saying that the VC has been removed from the council. So he says, where from this thought that the VC is no longer a member of the council? Are people reading the law? Whichever council there is, the VC and the pro-VC remain ex officio members of it automatically. That is law. And not having been appointed by the president has no power to fire him. And the president hasn't done that. Only a duly constituted council may do that. Of course, the VC may decide not to work with the so-called interim council because it's simply an illegal creature. Maybe the members of it should quietly resign. That's the newly created creature. The concept or notion of an interim council appointed without recourse to the law is not. What do you make of the first part of what he's saying? He's saying, you know, whichever council there is, the VC and the pro-VC remain ex officio members.
I have a great deal of respect for his uncle's opinions on all levels. Not only with the greatest respect, disagreement with that is you can only interpret the constitution, the implicit and explicit constitution of the council on the basis of known councils. Now, this is not a known council. The new one is not a known one. It's an interim arrangement. So we don't know its configurations and we don't know its implicit
It's legal basis within the existing
the old one, exactly. It's the old one. So his reading would have purely fitted the old arrangement. Mention the VC or not, there's an implicit arrangement that is part. But this is a new one. And because it's a stopgap measure, we can't read things into it because it doesn't have tradition for us to be able to read on the basis.
And he spoke about chaos, so also that if they showed up and they said we are ex officio members, even though we have not been named in the instrument appointing you as an interim, there would be chaos.
At the moment, that would be welcome. And remember that those who appointed this interim council, I heard the deputy minister clearly say that they would now determine the fate of the vice chancellor.
Yes,
right. You heard that. So that's where the problem is.
Maybe
that may have gone a little too far.
That's the point.
But clearly, we need to interrogate the interim.
Okay.
Interim.
Let me do this. Let me take a break. When we return, I'll read a statement issued by the student front also, and then we'll resolve this interim and old matters. We'll be right back.